My name is Lauren, and when I was 18, my parents put my clothes in a trash bag, handed it to me on the front porch, and told me to leave. No graduation party. No teary goodbye. Just a trash bag and a sentence I will never forget: if you're too good to pay rent, you're too good to live here. 10 years later, I stood on that same street, clipboard in hand, watching my parents carry moving boxes into a small brick house halfway down the block. They were arguing about the rent increase. They had no idea the landlord they were complaining about was me. This is the story of how I got kicked out of my family home for refusing rent at 18, and how I ended up owning most of the houses on the street they used to brag about. I grew up in a lower middle-class suburb in Indiana. You know the type: identical ranch houses, chain-link fences, kids' bikes rusting in front yards, dogs barking at every car that drove by. My parents bought our house when I was a baby. 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a big maple tree out front. They were proud of it, and they reminded us constantly. Some people live in apartments forever, my mom would say. We sacrificed so you kids could have a yard. Sacrificed was her favorite word. It usually meant, we made choices you didn't ask for, and now you owe us. I was the middle child. My older brother, Tyler, was 2 years ahead of me, and held the coveted golden child position. He was never great at school, never kept a job longer than a few months. But our parents always insisted he was just a late bloomer and too creative for regular work. I guess too creative was their nice way of saying, plays video games until 3 a.m. and sleeps until noon. My younger sister Emma was 5 years younger and the unofficial baby of the family. She could do no wrong. If she forgot a chore, it was because she's just a kid. If I forgot a chore, it was because I was lazy and ungrateful. I learned early that in our house, responsibility was a one-way street, and it flowed straight to me. At 14, my parents started charging me what they called phone rent. They decided my share of the family phone plan was $30 a month. It didn't matter that Tyler's line used 10 times the data mine did with his constant streaming. It didn't matter that Emma had a tablet that mysteriously never showed up on the bill. We're teaching you responsibility, my dad said. Life isn't free. So I got my first job bagging groceries after school. I didn't mind paying something. What I minded was being the only one expected to. When I pointed this out, Mom's answer was always the same. Tyler's trying to figure things out, she'd snap. And Emma is a child. You're the one who's mature enough to handle this. You mean I'm the one you can guilt into it, I thought. But I paid. Every month. I paid for my own toiletries, my own school clothes, my own club fees. If I wanted to go on the band trip, I sold candy bars and washed cars until I earned it. Tyler sat on the couch and complained that no one ever helped him out. Somewhere along the way, help started to sound a lot like free labor and free money. By the summer I turned 18, I was working almost full-time at a fast food place and taking community college classes through dual enrollment. I wanted out. Out of the house. Out of the town. Out of the role of unpaid assistant, third parent, and built-in housekeeper. I'd been accepted to a state university 2 hours away. Nothing fancy, but it felt like freedom. The only catch was money. My financial aid covered tuition and some fees, but not housing. I'd need to take out a small loan and work part-time to cover the dorm and food. I sat my parents down at the dining table one night with all the paperwork, nervous but hopeful. I can do this, I said. I just need you to fill out the parent section on the FAFSA and not mess with the numbers. I'm not asking you to pay. I just need your signatures. They read through everything slowly. Dad frowned. This is a lot of money, he said. Loans, fees. Why don't you just do community college here and live at home? That would be cheaper. It would be cheaper, I said. It would also mean I never actually leave. I'd still be doing everything I do now. Homework, work, cooking, taking Emma to practice. I love you, but I need a clean break if I'm ever going to stand on my own. Mom crossed her arms. You act like we're holding you prisoner, she said. Nobody's stopping you from leaving. Except you are, I said quietly. By refusing to sign these. I can't get the loans without you. She tapped the paper. Couldn't you just take a year, save more money, maybe work full-time, and reapply later? She asked. We're not made of cash, Lauren. We can't afford to help you if things go wrong. I'm not asking you to, I said. I just need the form signed. They exchanged a look. Well, if we're going to sign off on you taking thousands of dollars of debt, Mom said, then it's time you started contributing more around here. Adult rent. I stared at her. Adult what? I asked. Adult rent, she repeated. You're 18 now. You work plenty of hours. From now on, if you're living under this roof, you pay $300 a month. That covers your room, your utilities, your food. That's still cheaper than anywhere else you'll find. $300. My brain did the math automatically. I took home maybe $800 a month after taxes and gas. The rest went to savings for school. $300 a month? I said. I can't afford that and still save for college. Well, college isn't a right, Mom said. Plenty of people don't go. You can work full-time at the restaurant, maybe manager someday. That's good money. It's not what I want, I said. I want to go to school. I've been working for that this whole time. Dad cleared his throat. Look, he said, we're not trying to punish you. But the cost of everything is going up. Groceries, gas, the mortgage. You think it's cheap keeping the lights on in this place? Tyler's not in a position to help right now, and Emma can't. It's your turn. Tyler's 20, I said. He doesn't work. He sits at home all day playing Call of Duty. He eats everything in the fridge. Why isn't he paying rent? Mom's eyes narrowed. Your brother is going through a hard time, she said. The job market is rough. He gets anxious. We're not going to kick him when he's down. But you will kick me while I'm trying to get up, I said. Watch your tone, she snapped. You think you're better than us because you want to run off to college? We're asking for basic respect. What you're asking, I said slowly, is for me to give up on my future so you don't have to ask Tyler to get a job. Silence. For a second, I thought they might actually see it. Then Mom slammed her hand on the table. Those are the terms, she said. $300 a month, starting next month, or you move out. We are not your hotel. I felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. Next month? I said. School starts in 3 months. I need that money for books and deposits. Could we at least wait until I leave? If you're mature enough to go to college, you're mature enough to pay rent, Dad said. I looked at the acceptance letter sitting in the middle of the table. The life I wanted felt as fragile as that sheet of paper. I can't do 300, I said finally. Not without giving up school. I can do 100. Maybe 150. That's literally all I can manage. Then you're not ready to be an adult, Mom said coldly. Because adults pay their bills. I stood up. I'm trying to, I said. But I'm not going to be your built-in income while Tyler freeloads. That's not fair. Her lips thinned. Then I guess you won't be living here much longer, she said. I thought it was just a threat. Teenagers hear that one all the time. If you don't like it, move out. Most parents don't actually mean, pack a bag and leave right now. Mine did. About 3 weeks later, at the end of the month, I came home from a double shift to find a black trash bag on my bed. My clothes, my shoes, my toiletries, pulled from drawers and tossed together like donations. Mom? I called, my voice shaky. What is this? She appeared in the doorway, arms folded. You said you couldn't pay rent, she said. The first is tomorrow. We're not playing this game every month. If you're not contributing, you're freeloading. We don't support freeloaders. I stared at her. You're supporting Tyler, I said. You're supporting Emma. You've supported me all these years. That's what parents do. We've supported you long enough, she said. You're legally an adult. You have a job. You made your choice. You're really kicking me out, I whispered. Call it a consequence, she said. You want independence so badly? Here it is. Dad appeared behind her, looking miserable. Han, maybe we can give her more time, he started. Mom shot him a look that cut him off. We talked about this, she said. If we cave now, she'll never respect us. She'll walk all over us, just like the kids on those talk shows. I picked up the trash bag. It felt heavy and cheap at the same time. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. You have a car, she said. You have friends. Couch surf. Figure it out. You're smart, Lauren. You always say you're so responsible. Prove it. Tyler poked his head out of his room as I walked down the hall. Whoa, he said, seeing the bag. Mom finally doing it, huh? I ignored him. On the porch, Mom handed me my backpack and my purse. Don't lose your key, she said. You can come for dinner once a week if you want. But you're not staying overnight until you're paying your way. She shut the door. I stood there staring at the peeling paint, my brain buzzing. Then I walked to my beat-up Corolla, unlocked it, and threw the bag in the back seat. I sat behind the wheel for a long time, hands shaking, wondering if this was really happening. It was. I started the car and drove away from the only home I'd ever known. Being kicked out at 18 is not cinematic. It's not some empowering montage of look at me, making it on my own. It's a series of awkward phone calls. Hey, can I crash on your couch for a couple nights? It's showering at the gym before work because your friend's apartment only has hot water every other day. It's stuffing your life into the trunk of a car and pretending you're fine. I stayed with my friend Jenna for a month. Her mom was kind and made me dinner and asked gentle questions I mostly deflected. I cried quietly in their guest room at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so fast. My parents texted occasionally. Usually group messages to the kids, dinner Sunday at 5. Don't forget Grandma's birthday. They never once said, come home. They never once asked, are you okay? I didn't ask them for anything either. I was too proud. Too hurt. University was off the table. Without a permanent address and with my parents refusing to fill out any more paperwork, my financial aid got snarled. I deferred my admission and took as many shifts as I could manage. Restaurant. Grocery store. Anything that paid. I crashed on couches. Rented a room month to month in a sketchy house with 4 other girls. Fixed things on YouTube instead of calling landlords, because half the time there wasn't one. Slowly, I saved a tiny cushion. A few $100s at a time. During that year, something in me changed. I stopped dreaming about dorm rooms and started dreaming about leases. At the restaurant, regulars would complain about their landlords. My rent just went up again. The roof's leaking and he won't fix it. At the grocery store, older ladies talked about property taxes. How are we supposed to keep up? I started noticing for rent signs. Not just as a desperate teenager needing a room, but as places that belonged to someone. Someone who collected checks every month. Someone whose name was on the deed. I wanted that to be me. Not out of greed. Out of survival. If I ever owned a house, I swore, no one would ever be able to kick me out of it for refusing unfair rent. I stumbled into my first real estate lesson by accident. One of the servers I worked with, Mark, was in his 30s and always disappeared on his days off. One slow afternoon, he mentioned tenants and units and I perked up. You own property? I asked. He shrugged. Just a duplex on Maple and a little fourplex on Tyler Street. He said, like it was nothing. Bought them cheap, fixed them up, rent covers the mortgage. It's not glamorous, but it's better than working doubles until I'm 60. How did you even start? I asked. He grinned. Longitude, latitude, and desperation, he said. I was broke and sick of it. I read every book the library had on real estate. Bigger Pockets, blogs, podcasts. Then I bought something small and ugly that nobody else wanted. He wrote down a couple of website names for me. Start here, he said. You don't need rich parents, you just need information and patience. I devoured everything I could find. Articles about FHA loans. YouTube videos about house hacking. Forums full of people arguing about cap rates and cash flow. It felt like discovering a hidden rulebook for the game of adulthood. One concept hit me hard: equity. The idea that paying a mortgage, even a small one, built ownership, while paying rent built nothing. I'd watched my parents struggle with that. They were always one emergency away from disaster because they saw every dollar as something to spend, not something to plant. I wanted to plant. At 21, after years of grinding, I was finally in a position to try. I'd managed to clean up my credit, save a few $1,000s, and get a steady full-time job at a logistics company answering phones. Not glamorous, but it came with pay stubs banks liked. I started looking for something tiny. Maybe a condo. Maybe a manufactured home. What I found instead was a disaster of a house on the edge of town. 2 bedrooms. Peeling paint. Sagging porch. Listing photos that looked like crime scene pictures. But the price was shockingly low. Almost possible. I brought Mark to the showing. He walked through, poked at walls, tested faucets, and then turned to me. "If you have the stomach for some sweat," he said, "this could work. Roof's okay. Foundation's fine. It's ugly, not broken. Ugly is fixable." I scraped together a down payment, begged the seller for closing cost help, and signed the papers with shaking hands. The house smelled like dust and regret when I got the keys. I slept on an air mattress in the living room for months while I painted, patched, and scrubbed. On weekends, Mark came by and showed me how to lay vinyl plank flooring. We installed cheap cabinets from the clearance section at the home improvement store. Slowly it became livable. Then I did something that shocked my parents when they finally found out. I moved into 1 bedroom and rented the other to a coworker. Half my mortgage was covered. For the first time, the numbers went in my favor. From there, things snowballed. Not fast. Not like the Instagram gurus promised. But steady. I refinanced when rates dropped, freeing up a little equity. I saved again. I bought another small house across town. Fixed it. Rented it out. Rinse, repeat. By 25, I owned 3 modest houses and a cheap little condo. Nothing fancy. But together, they paid my bills, and then some. I was officially a landlord. The irony did not escape me. I hadn't been back to my parents' street in years. I avoided that side of town. When I did see my childhood block on the rare drive-by, it made my chest tight. Same maple trees. Same cracked sidewalks. Different kids riding bikes. Then one day, I saw something different. A for sale sign. In front of the little blue house 3 doors down from my parents'. The sign had the logo of a small local brokerage I recognized. On impulse, I pulled over, jotted down the number, and called. Turned out the owner was an older widower moving to live near his daughter. The house needed work. He didn't want to deal with it. We negotiated. With the equity from my other places, I could swing it. At closing, the title company clerk slid the deed across the table. "Congratulations," she said. "You own 314 Oakwood." Oakwood. My old street. I drove over after the ink dried, parked in front, and sat behind the wheel looking at the house. From that angle, I could see the roof of my parents' house down the block. Mom's rose bushes. Dad's perfectly edged lawn. My heart thumped weirdly. I owned a piece of the street that had once spat me out with a trash bag and a lecture about rent. I got out, walked around the blue house, and pictured kids playing in the yard, barbecues on the deck, someone hanging Christmas lights. Someone else. Not me. I wasn't buying my way back into their world. I was building my own. Renovating that house was personal. Every swing of the hammer felt like rewriting a memory. I tore out stained carpet and found decent hardwood beneath. I fixed squeaky doors. I painted over nicotine-stained walls with bright, clean colors. Neighbors walked by and watched, curiosity thinly veiled. "Who bought old Mr. Jenkins's place?" they'd ask. "An investor," the listing agent had said. They didn't know the investor had once ridden a bike up and down this street, had scraped her knees on this very sidewalk. Once it was done, I listed it for rent. Nice rent. Fair rent. Enough to cover the mortgage, taxes, repairs, and a little profit. I had applicants within a week. A young couple with a baby moved in. I handed them the keys and smiled. "Welcome to Oakwood," I said. They had no idea why that sentence felt like reclamation. Over the next few years, more for sale signs popped up on Oakwood. Original owners aging out. Kids moving away. The neighborhood turning over. I watched from a distance. Every time a sign went up and the numbers made sense, I called. I didn't win every bid, but I won enough. The little yellow house at the corner. The brick bungalow across from the park. One by one, I added them to my portfolio, fixed them, and filled them with tenants. By 28, I owned 4 of the 12 houses on Oakwood. I didn't brag about it. I didn't tell my parents. We were technically on speaking terms again, in the shallow way that families are when no one wants to address the giant elephant of the past. I sent holiday texts. They sent cautious proud of you messages when they saw my closings on Facebook. But we never talked about the night they'd kicked me out. It hung between us like fog. Then the pandemic hit. My parents' finances, already fragile, took a beating. Dad's hours were cut at the factory. Mom's part-time retail job vanished. They burned through what little savings they had. The perfect lawn started to fade. The paint on the house peeled. I heard about it through Emma. "They're not doing great," she said on the phone one night. "They're behind on the mortgage. They're fighting all the time." I felt sympathy. I also felt a dull, resigned sense of inevitability. This was where you ended up if you saw every dollar as something to spend and never as something to plant. 6 months later, I got an email alert from a real estate site. Price reduction on 327 Oakwood. My parents' address. My thumb hovered over the screen. Part of me felt sick. Part of me felt something else. Not joy. Not exactly satisfaction. More like the click of a puzzle piece sliding into place. I did not buy their house. Even if I'd wanted to, the timing and numbers didn't make sense. A larger out-of-town investor scooped it up, did a quick cosmetic flip, and listed it as a rental. My parents, now former homeowners, had a choice: move far away to something cheaper or rent nearby. They chose nearby. The investor did what investors do: raise the rent every year. 3 years later, when his portfolio got too big and he decided to offload some of his small headache properties, guess whose phone rang? Mine. "You still picking up single-family rentals?" he asked. "I've got a few on Oakwood I'm looking to sell." We haggled. We ran numbers. We settled on a price that worked. At closing, the attorney read off the addresses. 314, 322, 327, 331 Oakwood. I stopped her. 327? I repeated. "Yes," she said, checking the paperwork. "That one's tenant-occupied. Married couple, late 50s. Always on time with rent, apparently." My parents. Always on time now, because they had no other choice. I swallowed. "Okay," I said. "Let's keep going." When I signed the last page, my hand shook a little. I owned 4 more houses on Oakwood now, including my parents' rental. I was, technically, their landlord. I didn't tell them right away. Legally, I sent the standard notice. "Dear tenant, as of X date, your property located at 327 Oakwood has been purchased by Oakwood Homes LLC. All future rent payments should be made to..." Oakwood Homes LLC was my company. It kept things clean and separate. Professional. Mom called me 2 days after the letter arrived. "You'll never guess what happened," she said. "Our landlord sold the house to some company. We got a letter and everything." My heart thudded. "What kind of company?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. "Some LLC," she said, mangling the letters. "Oakwood something. I swear these investors are ruining neighborhoods. They buy everything up and squeeze people. I told your father, next thing you know they'll jack up the rent and kick us out." "Did they say they're raising the rent?" I asked. "Not yet," she admitted. "But you know they will. That's what landlords do." I swallowed my initial sarcastic response. "Maybe they'll be decent," I said. "Not every landlord is evil." She snorted. "That's what you say," she said. "You turned into one of them." "We all turn into something," I said gently. We changed the subject. I didn't tell her I was the one pulling the strings. Not yet. First order of business, I looked at the numbers. Their rent was actually slightly below market. Not by much. I could have justified a big jump and still stayed reasonable on paper. Instead, I drafted a modest increase letter. $50 more per month. Enough to cover rising taxes and maintenance. Not enough to break them. According to Emma, it still sent my mom into orbit. She's been ranting for an hour, Emma texted me. About greedy landlords and no loyalty. Dad says it's still cheaper than moving, but she's mad. I pictured her in that kitchen, shaking the paper, railing at the world. I pictured 18-year-old me sitting at that same table, being told to pay $300 or get out. I let myself feel a small private sense of symmetry. The next week, I scheduled inspections for all the Oakwood properties. Legally, I gave 30 days notice. Annual safety and maintenance inspection. An excuse to walk through, fix things, meet tenants. Including my parents. I almost chickened out. On the day of their inspection, I sat in my car outside 327 Oakwood, staring at the familiar siding, the porch where I'd stood with a trash bag a decade earlier. I thought about sending my property manager instead. But part of me needed to close the loop. So I grabbed my clipboard, took a breath, and knocked. Mom opened the door. "Hi," I said. "Inspection for Oakwood Homes." She blinked. "Lauren?" she said. "What are you doing here? Are you working for these people?" "In a way," I said. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside automatically. The house looked smaller. Not just because I'd grown. Because time had shrunk it. Old furniture. New clutter. Same musty smell of carpet cleaner and canned vegetables. Dad sat at the table, sorting pills into a weekly organizer. He looked up and smiled. "Hey kiddo," he said. "What's this about an inspection? You couldn't have just come over for dinner?" "Company policy," I said, holding up the clipboard like a shield. "Annual walkthroughs to check smoke detectors, look for leaks, that sort of thing." Mom huffed. "Landlords never did this when we owned the place," she muttered. "You were the landlord then," I said. "Now it's someone else's problem." I walked through the house methodically. Checked the smoke detectors. Tested the faucets. Noted the leaky bathroom sink and the sticking bedroom door. Normal stuff. Back in the kitchen, I sat down across from them. "There are a few small issues," I said. "I'll send someone to fix the sink and the door. Nothing major." Mom folded her arms. "Well, tell your boss thanks," she said. "At least they're doing something with all that rent money." I took a slow breath. "About that," I said. "There's something you should know about your boss." They both looked at me. "Oakwood Homes LLC," I said, "is my company." Silence. Dad's pill organizer snapped shut in his hands. Mom's mouth opened and closed. "What?" she said finally. "I own this house," I said. "And a few others on the street." "The company on your letters? That's me." Her face went through a whole slideshow of emotions in about 5 seconds. Shock. Denial. Anger. Embarrassment. "You're lying," she said weakly. I pulled a folded copy of the deed from my folder and slid it across the table. My name. Their address. Her hand shook as she read. You bought our house?" she whispered. "The house we raised you in?" "No," I said. "You lost that house when you sold it to the investor 3 years ago. I bought it from him. I own the place you're renting now." Her eyes filled with tears. "How could you?" she said. "How could you do this to us, to you?" I repeated. "I didn't raise your rent to market. I fixed the things your previous landlord ignored. You're getting better treatment from me than I ever got from you." Dad cleared his throat. "Is this some kind of revenge?" he asked quietly. I met his eyes. "Honestly?" I said. "At first, maybe. When I saw the address on the paperwork, I wanted to slam the door on you, the way you slammed it on me. But this is a business. I treat you like any other tenant. No better, no worse." Mom shook her head. "We're your parents," she said. "Parents don't pay their children to live in their house. It's backward. You stopped being my landlords the day you packed my life in a trash bag because I couldn't afford $300, I said. You made it about money. I just learned the rules." She flinched. "That was different," she said. "We were teaching you responsibility." "No," I said. "You were trying to fund your lifestyle by charging one kid while the other lived here for free. Now you are the ones learning responsibility. Paying on time. Following someone else's rules." Dad ran a hand over his face. "This is a lot to take in," he said. I softened my tone. "I'm not here to gloat," I said. "I'm here to be your landlord. That means I fix things when they break, I keep the property safe, and I charge rent that pays the bills. It also means if you don't pay, there are consequences, the same ones any other tenant would face." Mom's eyes flashed. "You would evict your own parents," she demanded. "I hope it never comes to that," I said. But I also never thought my own parents would kick me out at 18 because I couldn't afford their idea of adult rent. We can't keep pretending that didn't happen. The kitchen felt very small. Finally, Dad nodded. "Fair enough," he said. "We did what we did. You did what you did. Maybe this is—" Mom glared at him. "Don't you dare side with her," she said. "I'm not siding with anyone," he said. "I'm tired, Karen. I'm tired of pretending we didn't screw this up." He looked at me. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "For making something out of nothing." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you," I said. Mom got up abruptly and started banging dishes in the sink. "I can't look at you right now," she muttered. I took that as my cue to leave. At the door, I paused. "Your rent goes up $50 next year," I said. "Same as every other tenant. You'll get notice in writing. If you want to move, I'll give you a good reference as long as you've paid on time." Mom didn't turn around. Dad nodded. "We'll make it work," he said. I stepped out onto the porch. The maple tree in the front yard rustled in the breeze, leaves casting dappled shadows on the sidewalk where I'd once learned to ride a bike. I walked back to my car, my steps steady. People who hear this story always ask the same question. Why didn't you just forgive the debt? Give them free rent, be the bigger person. Here's the thing. Being the bigger person is what got me kicked out in the first place. I was the one who worked, who paid, who cleaned, who took on adult responsibilities so early it twisted my sense of normal. My parents weaponized the idea of paying your way when it benefited them, and ignored it when it came to my brother. They taught me that money and housing could be used as tools of control. I learned that lesson. I just refused to keep being on the wrong end of it. I don't overcharge my tenants. I don't neglect repairs. I'm not some cartoon villain of a landlord. I run my business fairly because I know exactly what it feels like to be on the other side of that power. Including with my parents. They get the same lease everyone else does. The same late fee schedule. The same maintenance response. Nothing more. Nothing less. Some days, that feels like justice. Some days, it just feels sad. I wish we'd never gotten here. I wish they'd said, "We're struggling, can you help a little with bills?" instead of demanding rent and throwing me out when I couldn't pay. I wish they'd treated me like a daughter, not a revenue stream. But we don't get to rewrite the past. We only get to decide how much of it we're going to drag into the future. So when I collect their rent check every month, it's not about punishment. It's about acknowledging reality. They chose money over relationship when I was 18. Now money is the boundary that keeps whatever relationship we have left from swallowing me whole. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Would you have bought a house on that street? Would you have rented to your parents? Would you have forgiven everything and given them a free place to live? Or would you, like me, finally insist that if life isn't free, that applies to everyone, not just the child who was easiest to push out? Thank you for listening to my story.